It was a winter morning when the baby was found, alone in a cardboard box behind the town's old post office, swaddled in a thin cotton cloth, her cheeks already red from the cold. Her cries were faint, but steady, like she was determined not to be forgotten. A passerby, Mrs. Trudy, noticed the sound while walking her dog and called the authorities. No one knew where she came from. There were no notes, no clues. Just a child with ash-colored hair, pale skin, and wide, uncertain eyes. "She's just a newborn," said the officer, wrapping her in his coat. Who would do such a thing? But no one came forward. They named her Elia, after the month she was found, January. The name was gentle, soft, unlike the world that awaited her. At first, she was placed in the town orphanage, a grey, slumped building on the edge of Hollow Ridge, a town that prided itself on tradition and order. The orphanage was not a place of love, but one of survival. Underfunded and forgotten, it was run by a few overworked caretakers who believed discipline mattered more than affection. From the beginning, Elia was different. She didn't speak much. Her eyes followed everything, quietly observing people's movements, as if trying to understand the world through its silences. She didn't cry loudly. She didn't laugh like the other children. She would sit alone, often watching the window, even when it rained. "She's strange," said Matron Callie. "Never smiles. It's like she doesn't feel anything. She doesn't fit in with the others," another caregiver added. When couples came to adopt, they skipped past her crib. They chose the loud toddlers with bright eyes, the children who smiled on cue and said please and thank you. Elia just watched, too quiet, too odd. By the time she was 5, she had become that child, the one no one wanted. Elia standing silently in the rain, soaking, watching a family take home another child. Matron scolds Elia over a false accusation, her eyes pleading but words frozen inside her. The older she grew, the more the distance widened. Elia had questions, many of them. Why did my mother leave me? Why won't anyone pick me? What did I do wrong? No one answered. She asked a teacher once, during a rare school visit. "Maybe you're just not like the others," the teacher replied awkwardly. "Some people aren't meant for normal lives." Those words stuck with her. Not meant for normal lives. Elia stopped asking after that. The children at the orphanage began to isolate her. They called her the ghost girl, because of her pale looks and quiet ways. Some threw stones. Others hid her things. A few were cruel enough to lie about her, claiming she pushed them or stole food, and the adults believed it, because they didn't care enough not to. So, Elia learned to live in shadows. At 10, she stopped speaking entirely. She would communicate with glances or gestures, write when she had to, but words felt like a betrayal. They only led to more rejection. She was 12 when she tried to run away for the first time. She made it as far as the river at the edge of Hollow Ridge before they found her. They didn't ask why. They didn't wonder what might have driven a child to flee. They just locked the gates tighter after that and assigned her to extra chores. But Elia never stopped dreaming of escape. Her life felt like a cage built by people who had long ago lost their empathy. Then came the community program, a project launched by the local mayor to encourage Hollow Ridge families to sponsor children from the orphanage for weekends or holidays. It was meant to foster connection, but for Elia, it was just another reminder of how unwanted she was. All the other children were chosen. She was the only one left behind. Why her? The townsfolk whispered when the Johnsons, a new couple who had just moved into town, requested to meet Elia. "She's difficult. She's not normal. She doesn't speak." But Mr. and Mrs. Johnson insisted. They said all children deserved a chance. Elia stayed with them for one weekend. Close-up of the Johnsons' kind smiles as they opened their door to her.
It was quiet, but not cruel. They gave her books, asked nothing of her, let her sit by the fireplace and draw. She slept in a bed with clean sheets and woke to the smell of fresh bread. For a moment, she thought, maybe this is what love feels like. But then, it ended.
Mrs. Johnson's sister visited and saw Elia in the hallway. "You're keeping that child?" she said, clearly horrified.
By Monday morning, the Johnsons returned her. "We're sorry," they said. "It's not a good fit." Elia didn't speak. But something inside her withered. By the time she was 15, Elia had built walls so thick no one could see inside. She wore long sleeves even in summer, hid behind books, and moved through the world like she was holding her breath. People avoided her on instinct. At school, she sat alone. Teachers stopped calling on her. Students whispered that she was cursed. No friends, no family. Maybe she was abandoned for a reason. That phrase repeated in her head so many times, it became a belief. Maybe I was abandoned for a reason. But one person noticed her. Kellen, the school janitor. An old man with a crooked back and tired eyes. He saw her once, sitting by the stairwell, blood dripping from a scraped knee after someone had shoved her. He said nothing. Just handed her a bandage and walked away. The next day, there was a thermos of hot soup sitting in her locker. Then, a worn book of poetry. Then, a small note, "Not everyone forgets. K." She never spoke to him. But she began to believe, in the smallest way, that maybe not all people were cruel.
Then, he died. Heart attack, they said. They cleaned out his closet. No one mentioned Elia. No one remembered he had seen her. She went to his grave alone and whispered, "Thank you." At 17, she left. Not with fanfare or drama. She just walked out one rainy night with a bag of old clothes, a notebook, and her silence. No one stopped her. No one reported her missing. The world was wide and cold, but it was hers now. She wandered from town to town, sometimes sleeping in shelters, other times in bus stations. She read books left behind on benches and watched people as they laughed and lived and moved on. But she remained outside of it all. In a small coastal town, she met an elderly painter named Vera who saw her sketching by the harbor. "You've got shadows in you," Vera said, "but they paint beautiful things." Vera offered her a corner of her cottage in exchange for cleaning and occasional help in the studio. Elia stayed. She spoke her first full sentence in years, "Thank you." A steaming cup of tea offered without words across a wooden table. Sunlight floods into Vera's studio as Elia watches colored brush strokes for the first time. Vera didn't ask about her past. But she let Elia be herself, quiet, strange, thoughtful. They painted together in silence. For the first time, Elia felt almost human again. Years later, Hollow Ridge wouldn't remember the child they abandoned. But in a seaside gallery, a collection of paintings began to draw attention. A series called Ashes in the Wind, portraits of a quiet child surrounded by empty rooms, shadowed playgrounds, and burning pages. A canvas of a lonely girl in an empty room begins to take form. The artist never spoke at openings. She wore grey and smiled rarely. But her art spoke louder than words. One critic wrote, "Each piece bleeds with rejection but holds a thread of resilience. It's like watching a ghost learn to live again." The artist's name was simple. Just one word, Elia. They never knew what she endured. But through her art, the world finally saw her. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.